Hi, this is Mark Ryan, and today I'm going to talk about a new book by Cade Metz about the history of AI called Genius Makers. Now, I've been looking for a book that describes the history of AI for some time now, and I understand this isn't an easy book to write, and I think there are a number of reasons for this. First, the story is complex. Think of just two questions. Who invented backpropagation? And when did deep learning go mainstream? These aren't really easy questions to answer, and that makes telling the story of AI complex because these are just examples of two questions that are difficult to answer. And the story of AI is littered with these kinds of complex, nuanced questions. The second reason that the story of AI is difficult to tell is that it's a technical story. Now think of just two technical questions. What's the role of the deep learning frameworks, currently TensorFlow and PyTorch? What's the role of deep learning specific hardware, GPUs and TPUs? Finally, the story of AI is hard to tell because it's a story that's in flight right now. It's in progress. Think of a couple of questions, such as, what will be the lasting impact of large transformer-based models like GPT-3? We don't know yet. Another question, when will self-driving vehicles become commonplace? That's another question we don't know the answer to yet because the story is still unfolding. In Genius Makers, Cade Metz attempts to answer these questions and others by telling the whole story of AI. Metz tells this story by telling the story of the people who lived through it. In particular, the triad of people who are seen as being responsible for deep learning: Hinton, LeCun, and Bengio. This book is written for a non-technical audience, but it doesn't shy away from some of the tougher aspects of AI. And I think Metz does a really good job here by describing the impact of AI and some of the difficult problems that occur in making AI real without getting into the technical weeds. It's a hard balance to make, and Metz does a great job making that balance. And Metz tells the whole story, starting in the early 50s and going up until early 2020. He talks about all of the heartbreak and wonder of AI as it's unfolded. He doesn't talk about GPT-3 or attempts to apply AI deep learning to understand COVID-19, so it's clear that the cutoff date was sometime in early 2020. But he really tells a great story up until then, and in particular, he talks about a lot of the details of the fast-paced events that unfolded during the 2010s. Metz does a really good job balancing passion for the accomplishments of deep learning, such as machine translation or turning human speech into text, while at the same time having a healthy skepticism about inflated claims about the imminence of AGI or the singularity or other overinflated claims about what AI can do for our lives. So Metz has written a book talking about the whole history of AI, describing the highs and lows, but what's the overall verdict? The book isn't perfect. Metz is a journalist, not a technical person, so there are some technical clangers. For example, his description of TensorFlow in chapter 14 doesn't quite ring true. Also, I think the subtitle doesn't do the book justice. Referring to Hinton or LeCun as mavericks, I just don't think it works. And referring to Google and Facebook in the subtitle is a bit misleading. However, my overall verdict is 5 unalloyed stars. This book is really well written, and it describes the history of AI in a way that nobody else has been able to do. It's entertaining. I learned a great deal about the history of AI by reading it, and I think it does a great job in describing this difficult topic to a non-technical audience in a way that really tells the whole story. And that's my review of Genius Makers by Cade Metz. If you haven't already read it, buy it. You won't regret it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you haven't, please check out my book, Deep Learning with Structured Data. See the link in the description for this video. Thanks.